My ex-wife showed up in court pregnant, demanding my house, until the DNA results exposed her lies and turned the entire room against her. My name is Jason Holt, 34 years old, born and raised in Ohio. I work in commercial construction project management. I've been married once, no kids, and thought I had my life lined up pretty solid. I met Marissa Kane in college when I was 25 and she was 23. We dated 2 years, got married, bought a house, the whole deal. The first few years were fine, good even, but the last couple completely fell flat. We separated 8 months ago, and the divorce papers had been moving slow but steady. It was supposed to be simple. Fast forward to the courthouse on a gray Monday morning. I was sitting in the waiting area outside courtroom 3B with my lawyer, Charles Whitman. The place looked like every courthouse you've seen in movies. I had a folder in my lap with all the divorce paperwork, everything neat, signed, and agreed on. This hearing was supposed to be the final stamp, no surprises. I'd keep the house because it was in my name. She'd keep her car and whatever furniture she bought, no spousal support, no kids involved, just a clean break. Then the door opened and Marissa walked in. She was late by maybe 10 minutes and right away I knew something was off. She had on this big, tight white dress that made her stomach impossible to miss. She looked 6 or 7 months pregnant. My brain froze. I hadn't seen her in person since we separated, except once months ago when we signed early papers. And back then there was nothing like this. Marissa walked in like she owned the place, wearing that same smirk she used to have when she'd win an argument. Only now it felt practiced, like she wanted the whole room to notice her belly first. Behind her was her sister Tessa carrying a giant purse and some sharp-looking lawyer I'd never seen before. Tall guy, dark blue suit, shiny shoes, the type who looks at you like you're just a bank account with legs. Charles leaned over and whispered, "Did you know about this?" I just shook my head. My mouth was already dry. We all filed into the courtroom when the bailiff called the case. Judge Leonard Graves presiding. Older guy, gray hair, glasses low on his nose. The type who scans paperwork like he's looking for landmines. We sat down, Marissa across from me with her lawyer and Tessa. She kept one hand on her belly the whole time like she was on a magazine cover. Judge Graves started by confirming we were there to finalize Holt versus Kane, no disputes left unresolved. That's when her lawyer stood up. "Your Honor," he said, all formal. "New circumstances have arisen since the original divorce terms were drafted. My client is 7 months pregnant with Mr. Holt's child. We request immediate modification of the settlement to include prenatal support, custody arrangements for the unborn child, and reconsideration of property division for the child's stability." I felt my chest get tight. 7 months would put conception right before she moved out. The judge looked over his glasses at Marissa. "Ma'am, you confirm you are 7 months along?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marissa said, smooth as ever, "and Mr. Holt is the father." My lawyer hadn't stood up yet. I think he was waiting for me to speak, but I couldn't. My head was spinning dates in circles. Judge Graves tapped his pen. "Given this development, I'm going to delay final judgment for 2 weeks. Both parties will provide any medical documentation or evidence relevant to paternity and pregnancy status before we proceed. The court also orders an expedited non-invasive prenatal paternity test. Both parties and any putative father are to cooperate with sample collection within 48 hours. He set the new date and adjourned. We all stood. I grabbed my folder even though there was nothing left to do with it. Marissa walked right past me on the way out, slowed down just enough to lean in close and whispered, "Hope you have a good lawyer. You're going to need one." Then she kept walking, one hand on her back like the belly was making it hard to move. I didn't say a word. Outside, Charles told me not to panic yet. People claim all sorts of things in divorce court, but I could tell he was rattled too. He said, "Get any records you have about dates, communications, whatever, and we'll meet tomorrow." I drove home in silence. That night, I pulled out my old calendar app where I mark everything. Work trips, family birthdays, even date nights back when we still had those. The last time Marissa and I were together was March 15th. We'd already separated by then, it was a one-off. Now it was October 22nd, 7 months and a week exactly. I sat there staring at that date when my email pinged. No name, just a subject line, "She's lying about the dates." The message body said, "Meet me tomorrow. Bring no one." That was it. The next morning I went to the cafe the email told me about, a chain place downtown packed with college kids and people on laptops, easy to blend in. I got there early, grabbed a black coffee and sat by the window. 10 minutes later, someone slid into the seat across from me, hoodie up, sunglasses on even though we were inside. I couldn't tell if it was a guy or a girl at first. They kept looking over their shoulder before talking. "You're Jason Holt?" they asked quietly. "Yeah, okay. I don't have a lot of time. What she told the court yesterday doesn't line up with the clinic schedule. She wasn't even seen there until June. The 7-month thing is fake." My heart rate jumped, but I stayed calm. "How do you know that?" They pulled out their phone like they were about to show me something, then stopped. "I got proof, but I'm not giving it for free. $200 and I give you copies." I shook my head. "Not happening. If you actually have proof, give it to the court. I'm not handing cash to someone I met 5 minutes ago." They seemed irritated but not surprised. "Suit yourself, but she's lying. I know she is." They stood up and left before I could ask another question. I sat there for a minute wondering if this was a scam or real evidence. No way to know. Either way, I wasn't about to buy mystery files in a cafe like some movie scene. I left and called Charles, told him what happened. He said if I wanted real answers, we needed someone who could actually verify things properly. He gave me the number of a private investigator he'd worked with before. Frank Delgado, ex-cop, good reputation, handled family cases all the time. I called Frank that afternoon. He told me to come by his office the next morning. Frank's office was in a small building above a tax prep place. Nothing flashy. Inside, the walls were lined with old framed photos of him shaking hands with cops and firefighters. The furniture looked like it hadn't changed since the early 2000s, but everything was clean and organized. Frank was mid-50s, short gray hair, beard trimmed neat. He shook my hand, sat me down, opened a yellow legal pad. "All right," he said. "Start from the top. Don't leave anything out, no matter how small." I told him everything. The marriage, the separation date, the last time I saw Marissa, what happened in court, even the weird cafe meeting. I gave him copies of texts, emails, and the calendar screenshot with the March 15th date circled. He nodded along, taking notes the whole time. "Okay," he said. "I'll need some things from you. Timeline of events. Any bank statements from around when you separated. Access to her public social media if she hasn't blocked you. Names of family or friends she was close to. I'll stay within the law, but I need as much as I can get." I gave him what I had. Most of her Instagram was still public. She wasn't big on privacy settings. He started pulling stuff up on his own laptop while we talked. Within minutes, he found photos on Marissa's Facebook from January and February. A guy I didn't recognize in several of them. Tall, dark hair, sometimes with his arm around her. Same guy in a Valentine's Day dinner picture, date stamp clear as day, February 14th. "Know him?" Frank asked. "No, he's in a lot of these." Name tag says Dylan Mercer on one of his work photos. Frank kept scrolling. There was a beach picture of Marissa and Dylan from early March, less than 2 weeks before the last time I saw her. He wrote Dylan's name down on his pad. Might be nothing, might be something. We'll find out. Then he looked at the bank statements I'd brought. Nothing huge jumped out, but he pointed at a series of small transfers from our old joint account to one under Tessa's name. $20 here, 50 there, starting 2 weeks before Marissa moved out and continuing through the first court date. "Looks like she was funneling little bits of money out before closing the joint account," Frank said. "Could be normal, could be hiding something. I'll trace it." By the end of the meeting, Frank had a plan. He was going to verify medical records through legal channels, map out Marissa's movements from the time she left until now, talk to clinic staff who might confirm appointment dates off the record, keep scraping her social media for travel photos, tags, and locations, and check the money trail tied to those transfers. "Give me a week," he said, closing the notebook. "If she's lying, we'll prove it." I walked out, feeling nervous, but also like finally someone was digging into facts instead of me guessing dates on my phone at midnight. 3 days later, Frank called me at lunch. "Marissa just got in a car accident," he said. "Not serious, just a fender bender over by Grant Avenue. She went to St. Luke's to get checked. I've already got someone pulling the incident report." I froze mid-bite. "She okay?" "Yeah, just bruised. But the hospital records will have the gestational age from her intake forms. We'll know what the doctors put down." I didn't even know hospitals log that sort of thing, but Frank said car accident visits trigger full checkups if someone's pregnant. Insurance billing, medical coding, all of it leaves a paper trail. Within 2 business days, he called back. "Got it. The ER file says 21 weeks pregnant, not 7 months. Big difference." Charles had already secured a short fuse court order compelling St. Luke's to produce the ER intake note, so the record came in through the court within 48 hours. I wrote the number down on a notepad. 21 weeks meant roughly 5 months, so either the hospital was wrong or she was. Before I could even process it, another email landed in my inbox. Same anonymous sender as before, no subject line this time, just one attachment, a screenshot of an ultrasound file. The message read, She used this in court. Check the file info. It's not hers. I opened the screenshot. It showed the property's window for a PDF, creation date, author name, clinic watermark. The author name didn't match Marissa or her doctor. The creation date was from 2019, and the clinic watermark had a different hospital's name than the one she claimed. The anonymous sender followed up 5 minutes later. It belongs to someone else. She edited the date in Photoshop, looked closely at the edges. I forwarded it all to Frank. 10 minutes later, he called back laughing, the kind of laugh people do when they're annoyed. Amateurs, he said. The document ID doesn't match that clinic's format, and the doctor listed was on vacation that entire week. She didn't even fix the watermark properly. Frank said he'd add it to the evidence stack. 2 days later, he gave me an update in person and spread documents across his desk. Bank printouts, screenshots, shipping receipts. Look here, he said, pointing at a line on a statement. These small transfers to Tessa's account started 2 weeks before she moved out and stopped right after the first court date. He showed me a deposit receipt into Tessa's account, dated the same day Marissa ordered something from a costume supply site. The item description said, maternity belly stage 3. She bought the fake bump online, used Tessa's card, and reimbursed her through these transfers. Sloppy, but clear enough. One transfer lined up exactly with the maternity belly purchase, the rest bracketed the move out and first court date. He also had the seller's order confirmation and the carrier's delivery record for the package in Marissa's name, business records obtained using the transaction details in a narrowly tailored request. I asked if this was all legally usable. He said yes. Bank statements came from accounts I was joint on, and the ultrasound metadata was fair game since she submitted it to court. While he organized everything into folders, I tried not to think about how much time she must have spent planning this. She hadn't just lied casually, she built props, paperwork, the whole thing. Work that week was rough. I was behind on a project because my head was full of court dates, emails, and Frank's updates. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected more bad news. At night, I started making my own binder. Every email, every receipt Frank gave me, I printed and labeled by date, even got colored sticky tabs so I wouldn't be flipping pages like an idiot in front of the judge. The pile grew fast, hospital record with 21 weeks circled, shipping receipt for the fake belly, bank transfers into Tessa's account, the 2019 ultrasound PDF with mismatched watermark. I printed 2 sets just in case. One evening, while sorting papers, another email came in from the anonymous sender, this one longer. Dylan's been telling people it's his baby. He thinks she's waiting until the divorce is final so she can move in with him full time. Ask him yourself if you want. I'm done keeping his secrets. The message ended with, I'm Kayla. I was Dylan's fiancé, not anymore. So that was it. Kayla Summers, the mystery sender, saying Dylan Mercer, the guy from all those beach photos, was the real father. I sent it straight to Frank. He wrote back 2 words, getting statements. That night I sat at my kitchen table staring at the growing stack of evidence. It felt less like a divorce now, and more like I was prepping for some investigation you read about in the news. Every document made Marissa's story look thinner and thinner. Frank texted before bed, next step, talk to Kayla. She's ready to burn it all down. Frank called me 2 mornings later and said he was going to drop by Tessa's place. He told me it would look routine, just tying up details about the furniture from the old house, stuff listed in the divorce paperwork, so she wouldn't shut down right away. I met him in the parking lot of her apartment building so I could hear what she said firsthand. It was one of those older complexes with brick walls, metal staircases, and mailboxes crammed together under a flickering light. Tessa opened the door wearing sweatpants and a college hoodie, eyes puffy, hair in a loose knot. Frank started off easy, morning Tessa. Just need a quick word about the furniture list for the court filing. Want to make sure we got the right items down before the judge sees it. She nodded and let us in. Her place smelled like coffee and air freshener. A cat jumped off the counter and ran into the bedroom. Frank pulled out a notepad, flipped through a few pages like this was purely administrative. Then, while she was reading the list over his shoulder, he said casually, by the way, hospital records from St. Luke's show Marissa at 21 weeks pregnant, not 7 months, and we traced some bank transfers into your account around the same time she ordered a maternity belly online. That about right? The pen in Tessa's hand froze mid-signature. Frank didn't push, he just looked at her, waiting. Finally, she set the pen down. Look, I didn't think it was going this far. Marissa said she just needed to look pregnant so she could keep the house. She told me Jason had screwed her over financially. I cut in, I didn't screw her over. We agreed on everything. Tessa shrugged like she didn't want to be in the middle anymore. I helped change the date on one ultrasound file she got from some clinic Facebook group, she continued. I printed it, changed the header date, that's it. She said it was harmless. Frank asked if she'd be willing to make a statement. He had a small recorder in his bag and explained it was voluntary and legal as long as she agreed. Tessa nodded, probably realizing she didn't want to be tied to perjury charges if this hit court. She said clearly on record, yes. She altered the date on the PDF. Yes, I gave Marissa the fake belly the morning of the first hearing. Yes, she planned to use the pregnancy claim to change the divorce terms. When it was done, Frank thanked her and asked for the original file she used to make the edits. Tessa pulled it from her email on her phone and forwarded it to him right there. That afternoon, Frank called the clinic whose name was on the ultrasound Marissa had submitted in court. He got the office manager on speakerphone so I could hear. He read out the document ID number printed on the bottom corner. The manager checked their system. We can confirm without discussing any patient information that the document ID doesn't match our format. And the doctor listed on it, Dr. Keller, was on vacation that entire week. It isn't one of ours. She offered to email a signed statement confirming both details for legal purposes. Frank said yes and gave her Charles Whitman's law office address so it would go straight to the attorney handling the case. Frank called Charles to coordinate. The plan was to build a clean stack of evidence with a clear chain of custody, no screenshots floating around without context. Every document dated, signed, sourced, every witness lined up properly. Charles said we'd probably call 3 people if needed: the clinic manager for the ultrasound records, the ER nurse or admin from St. Luke's for the 21-week note, and Tessa herself since she was cooperating. Frank would handle notarizing her statement so it didn't turn into a he said, she said situation later. That evening, I was going through a closet looking for an old box of tax files when I found our wedding album wedged between binders. I sat on the floor flipping through it. Marissa smiling on the church steps, my parents holding hands, me looking 10 pounds lighter and about 10 years less tired. I closed the album, put it back in the box, slid the box onto the top shelf and left it there. Frank set up a meeting 2 days later with Kayla, Dylan Mercer's ex-fiancée. She wanted to meet at a diner off the highway, neutral spot, plenty of people around. When I got there, Kayla was already in a booth by the window with Frank. Mid-20s, dark hair tied back, looked like she hadn't slept much. A manila folder sat on the table in front of her. I'm done covering for him, she said as soon as I sat down. Dylan, Marissa, all of it. I was supposed to marry him in August. Found out about her in February, but he kept swearing it was nothing serious. Then I saw messages. Everything made sense. She slid the folder across the table. Inside were printouts of text conversations between Marissa and Dylan. In one dated March 5th, Marissa wrote, "Once the divorce is done, we'll sort paternity. Jason can carry the bills for a while, then we make it official." Another from Dylan, "You sure he won't ask for Tess right away?" Marissa replied, "If he does, we stall. Tessa will help. He's clueless." Kayla had more. Hotel receipts with both their names from March 10th, the beach trip photos stamped the same weekend. Even a message draft Marissa wrote to herself accusing me of angry outbursts at the house, planning to file it after the first hearing to make the judge side with her for custody and the house. I flipped through the receipts, screenshots, photos, dates all lined up with what Frank had already found. "Why give this to us?" Frank asked. Kayla shrugged. "Because I was about to marry a liar who got another woman pregnant while cheating with her on me, and she's trying to ruin some guy who didn't do anything. I'm out." She signed a short statement Frank had ready confirming she gave us the material voluntarily and that the screenshots came directly from her phone. 2 days later, right on schedule, Marissa filed an abuse complaint. Claimed I forced my way into her apartment the night of April 2nd and screamed at her for an hour, said she felt unsafe and needed a protective order immediately. Problem for her, I was on a Zoom call with my boss that whole evening. Frank pulled the meeting log showing my webcam active from 6:45 p.m. to 9:15 p.m., including IP logs placing me at my home address. My doorbell camera showed no visitors all day, and my phone's location history put me at home that night. Marissa's next-door neighbor gave a written statement saying she never saw me there that night or any night since March. Charles filed a counter-response within 24 hours attaching all of it. The judge didn't issue any protective order, said it would be reviewed after hearing evidence. Frank called it a cheap move that backfired fast. Meanwhile, Kayla agreed to testify if needed. She wanted nothing to do with Dylan anymore and said she'd tell the court about the texts, receipts, everything. She even gave Frank access to her cloud backup to confirm message authenticity so Marissa's lawyer couldn't claim they were fabricated. Frank organized it all into a timeline. Seeing it on paper like that made the pattern impossible to ignore. He kept digging into Dylan, too. Found out Dylan's parents lived 2 towns over and had posted on Facebook about their grandbaby coming this winter, lining up perfectly with the hospital's 21-week record. Kayla forwarded another text where Dylan told a friend, "Can't wait till she moves in after the divorce is done. Marissa says the house will be ours by then." Frank highlighted that one in red, shows motive. He thought this plan actually had a finish line. Charles started drafting the witness list for the next hearing. He said we might not even need all of them if the judge accepted the documents without dispute, but it was better to be ready. Kayla told Frank she didn't care about facing Marissa in court. "She wrecked my life. If I get to wreck her lies, fine by me." Frank said next week's hearing is going to be ugly for her, and for the first time since this started I believed him. The second hearing started on time, 9 a.m. sharp. I walked in with Charles and Frank carrying 2 binders full of documents, every page labeled and dated. Marissa was already there in a plain white dress this time, hair pulled back, no flashy jewelry, looked calmer, like her lawyer had told her to dial it down after the abuse claim blew up. Her lawyer had a thicker folder than last time. I noticed him flipping pages quick like he was hoping to bury bad evidence under paper. Tessa sat behind them looking pale, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. Dylan wasn't in the room yet. Judge Graves came in, same calm face, glasses low on his nose. He reviewed the case number, confirmed both parties were present, then said, "I understand new evidence has been submitted by both sides since our last hearing." Marissa's lawyer went first, handed up medical documents, ultrasounds, a short statement claiming my alleged anger issues made shared custody complicated. Same story, she was 7 months pregnant, the house should go to her for the child's stability. Judge Graves flipped through the papers, paused on one page, frowned. "Counselor," he said, "your own exhibits list inconsistent gestational ages. One note says 20 weeks, another 28. Can you explain that?" Her lawyer cleared his throat. "Different clinics calculate differently, Your Honor." Charles stood. "Given the conflicting records and the abuse claim already disproven by video evidence," he said, "the court already ordered an expedited non-invasive prenatal paternity test at the last hearing. The lab filed its report within 5 business days. Dylan Mercer was noticed through counsel and submitted a cheek swab sample within 48 hours. The judge nodded slowly, looked at Marissa. "Any objection to admitting the lab report already on file?" She whispered with her lawyer for a moment, then shook her head. "Very well," the judge said. He signaled to the clerk who handed up the sealed envelope from the court file. He broke the seal, read silently, and set it aside for the moment. "We'll take brief testimony before I read findings into the record." Just before testimony began, the courtroom doors opened, and Dylan walked in with Kayla right behind him, both arriving together after being prepped by counsel. Dylan looked nervous, kept adjusting his jacket sleeves. Kayla looked like she was there to watch the world burn. They spoke to Charles and Frank for 5 minutes in the hallway. Then, once we were back on the record, Dylan asked to address the court. "I want to acknowledge I'm the father," he said when allowed to speak. "I have messages, photos, dates. They all match what's already been shown here. I was told she just needed financial help from her ex until after the birth. I want my name on my kid's birth certificate when the time comes." You could feel the air shift. Even Marissa's lawyer stopped writing notes for a second. Judge Graves asked, "Do you have these messages with you?" Kayla held up a folder. "Screenshots with timestamps, Your Honor. I also have hotel receipts and social media posts from his family confirming the pregnancy timeline." The judge took the folder, skimmed the first few pages, then handed it to the clerk for copying. When court reconvened after a short break, Tessa was called under subpoena. She didn't look at Marissa once. "Yes," she said when Charles asked, "I changed the ultrasound date at Marissa's request. I printed it myself. I also handed her the maternity belly she bought online the morning of the first hearing. She told me it was just to make sure she kept the house." Her voice cracked near the end, but she kept talking. "I didn't know about the paternity lies until later. I'm cooperating because I don't want legal trouble over something I didn't plan." Marissa sat stone-faced the whole time, arms folded tight. The judge called everyone to order while the clerk handed him the lab report again. He read it aloud this time. "Preliminary results indicate a 0% probability of paternity for Mr. Holt. Probability exceeds 99% for Mr. Mercer." The courtroom went dead quiet. Then a low murmur started among the people waiting for other cases. Judge Graves tapped his gavel once. Order, this isn't a theater. Marissa's lawyer whispered to her rapidly, but she didn't respond. Dylan just sat there rubbing his jaw like he already knew this was coming, but hated hearing it out loud. The judge made a few notes, then asked short, direct questions. To Dylan. You acknowledge paternity under oath? Yes, Your Honor. To Tessa. Your testimony about altered documents is accurate? Yes, Your Honor. To Marissa. Do you dispute these results or the testimony presented? No answer. Just a small shake of her head. Judge Graves sighed, closed the folder, and said we'd proceed to closing arguments before final judgment. He didn't waste time once the lab results were read. He shuffled through both stacks of evidence, took off his glasses, and spoke in a steady voice that filled the courtroom. This court finds that the original divorce settlement stands as filed. Mr. Holt retains ownership of the marital property in financial terms previously agreed upon. There will be no modifications based on claims of pregnancy or child custody involving Mr. Holt. Marissa didn't look at anyone. Her lawyer stared down at the table, flipping his pen between his fingers like he already knew what was coming next. The judge wasn't done. He turned a page. Furthermore, based on sworn testimony and documentary evidence, this court refers Ms. Kane to the district attorney's office for review of potential perjury and fraud charges relating to altered medical records, false testimony, and the knowingly false allegation of abuse. All legal costs for both parties will be the responsibility of Ms. Kane. I heard Tessa suck in a sharp breath behind her. She'd given her statement already and probably realized she was lucky not to be included in that referral. Finally, Judge Graves continued, based on the proven submission of altered documents, the knowingly false abuse allegation, and the resulting risk of further harassment, a no-contact order is granted between Ms. Kane and Mr. Holt, effective immediately. He signed the order with one firm stroke, handed it to the clerk, and that was it. Court adjourned. As people stood to leave, Dylan raised his hand slightly. Your Honor, I want to be recognized as the father moving forward. I'll file the voluntary acknowledgement of paternity after the birth, and I'm ready to follow whatever schedule the court sets. The judge nodded. That will be handled separately through family court for custody and support matters. This proceeding concerns only the divorce. Kayla walked right past Marissa without looking at her, stopped next to me for a second. Glad it's over, she said quietly, then left the courthouse without waiting for Dylan. He stayed back, approached me near the door, hands in his jacket pockets. Jason, he said, I believed everything she told me about you. Thought you kicked her out, left her with nothing. I didn't know until Frank showed up with the records. I'm sorry, I nodded. Your kid's yours. Handle it right, that's all on you now. He said he would, then followed Kayla out the front doors. By the next afternoon, the local news ran a short piece. Judge refers divorce case for fraud review after false paternity claims. They didn't name names, but people in town connected the dots fast. Someone on Facebook posted a picture of Marissa leaving the courthouse and tagged her old workplace. 2 days later, Frank told me her accounting firm launched an internal ethics review. Tessa's name didn't come up publicly. Charles said her cooperation and early statement would probably keep her out of criminal trouble, though. She might get called as a witness if the DA filed charges against Marissa. 2 months later, I signed papers selling the old house. I didn't want to keep living in a place tied to all that drama. I bought a smaller place closer to work. 1 bedroom, quiet street, no memories attached. The no-contact order meant no calls, no texts, nothing from Marissa. She didn't try anyway. Frank said the DA had officially filed perjury charges by then, plus counts for submitting false evidence. Dylan and Marissa stayed together through all of it. At least according to what Frank heard. Their kid was born in March. I didn't follow the details. I started a weekend woodworking class that winter, something to do with my hands besides paperwork. Built a coffee table that actually came out level, made a couple friends in the class, normal people who didn't ask about courtrooms or DNA tests. Work got busier. I got promoted to site manager in March, spent more time on job sites than thinking about the past year. One Saturday, while unpacking the last moving box, I found the wedding album again. Same one I'd shoved on a shelf months before. I didn't open it this time. Just put it in a storage bin with tax records and old manuals, taped the lid shut, slid it under the bed. I realized I didn't miss Marissa herself. I missed the version of her I thought was real back when we first got married. That version never existed outside my head. Last week, I stopped by Frank's office to drop off a thank you card. He waved it off like it was nothing, said just another case, but I told him it wasn't to me. Charles got one too. I paid his invoice the same day. No complaints. Worth every cent. I blocked Marissa's number. Dylan's too. No reason to ever hear from either of them again. So yeah, If anyone reading this is going through something messy, document everything. Keep receipts, texts, dates. Don't yell, don't threaten, don't give anyone ammo. Facts win in the end. Took me almost a year, but it ended clean. And now I get to build something new from scratch without lies hanging over it.